I think we need 5. Is that right?
We do. So we'll just give it a minute or 2 more. I did hear from Ramaz, and she said she could join. So I haven't heard from anyone else. So we'll give it a minute or 2. Hi, Eric. Nice to see you.
Hello.
Just waiting for one more person, hopefully to make quorum. I'm going to send out an email really quick here. Sam, if you can let me know if anybody's in the waiting room as I'm doing that, that would be great.
Oh, there's Fred.
We're good. You see Fred? Okay, we're good. Phew. You never know.
All right. Well, let's
We have quorum.
Okay, fantastic. So let's get started. Call the meeting to order. It's 4:01 p.m. Hold on. There we go. And I acknowledge with respect that we are in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, known as Boating. And Boating is the home of Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. I am looking for someone to move and to second the adoption of the minutes from our last meeting. I'm okay, Eric, thank you, and Andre. Any discussion, errors, omissions, changes? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Fred and Ramaz, I can't see your hand, so if I'm going to ask that if you have any objection to anything that you wouldn't be approving, just please pipe in. Otherwise, we will assume that you are in approval. Any declarations of pecuniary interest today from anyone? I never thought of this before, but I'm wondering if Eric has a conflict on the Green Initiatives application that he's included in.
So from my understanding, just from a corporate standpoint, and I did speak to clerks about this,
okay.
If there is no financial gain on his part, then there would not be a reason for a conflict.
Okay. It's always, they say conflict can be either positive or negative, right? It can be financial gain or financial loss. So always good to just clarify those things.
And I did run it by clerks, so.
Thank you, perfect. Looking for a mover and a seconder to adopt today's agenda. Andre, thank you. And I need a seconder. Could that be, looking for a hand? Thank you, Pedro. So any additions, changes, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor of the agenda for today, and that is carried. Thank you. All right, Emily, I'll leave it to you to take us through the 3 different, exciting to see, very exciting to see, 3 different applications for the Green Initiatives program. And I just have a process question. I don't believe we talked about this. Are we going to, was the thinking that we were going to listen to each application and then and ask questions after each one, but we're going to discuss the approval after each one? Or are we thinking to discuss approval at the end?
One at a time.
One at a time. Okay.
So we're going to do I'm going to give a summary Then we'll open it up to the applicants to share anything that they wanted to add to that. Then we'll open it up to the committee to ask questions, and then we'll call to vote on if we would like to move that for a recommendation to council, and then we'll move to the next one. And after each application is done, the guests are allowed to leave after we've discussed what we've discussed.
What? Okay, perfect. All right.
Can I ask a question? So just to understand, so we have a budget and each of these applications have a certain amount that they're requesting for their project, and we have to, so what, can you give us maybe some background what our total budget is for this, and then how that fits in? So because do we have enough money to support all the projects, or how does that work?
Sure. So the Green Initiatives Fund has an annual budget of $50,000. At present, we've had one application come through this year, which was the Invasive Species Center workshop. I don't recall offhand exactly the grand total, but I'm going to say it was around $2,600 that they requested, and that was recommended by the committee. It went to council. It was approved by council. So we currently have at this moment 47,000 and change that has not been allocated from the 50,000 as of right now. Okay.
Okay, Andre. Okay. Okay, go ahead, Emily.
Okay, so yes, to reiterate what Donna said, we have 3 applications on the docket this evening that have come through for review by the Environmental Sustainability Committee. We're joined by several guests. The first project that we're going to discuss is the City of Sault Ste. Marie Stormwater Art Project, and we're joined by Virginia McLeod for her request for that. So as a summary, this project has a goal to draw attention to storm drainage systems and educate the public on the connection between stormwater runoff and the St. Mary's River. It will include the painting of 12 stormwater intakes during the project this summer as a pilot. These paintings are intended to bring awareness to potential pollutants such as litter, debris, hazardous chemicals entering the storm drainage system, etc. This project also intends to work with the public library on an education initiative regarding literacy about the Great Lakes and water quality called Libraries Love Lakes, or Libraries Loves Lakes. And it also is a project that the Environmental Sustainability Committee recommended as one of their top 3 projects that we were hoping to see come to fruition, rather aligns with what we were hoping to see come to fruition this year. So the application is looking for funding for painting supplies, as well as an honorarium for the artists. It's going to include a call for youth artists, as well as a call for professional artists as well. So we are joined here by my colleague, Virginia McLeod. Virginia, if there's anything you would like to add to the explanation about the scope of the project, please do so now.
No, I think, thank you, Emily. Thank you, everybody, for having me today. No, I think the only other piece that we might be able to include in speaking with Sharon is we do a storybook trail along the waterfront. And there is a long list of books that are part of the Libraries Loves Lakes and children's stories. So hoping to, and we would have enough funding to cover this, but hoping to actually add in a story that would be selected. We do have to get the copyrights, but that's something that we would be able to fund through our department, but we'd be adding it in as part of this project to continue with our storybook trail along the waterfront.
Virginia, can you maybe elaborate what that looks like for people who don't know exactly what it is?
So the storybook trail, we print pages of books, and there's cases that are kind of from the library down along the waterfront through Clerk Park. And each of the cases is a different page of the book. So families will go down and they'll take their children and they'll read each of the pages as they move along. That's a project that we do with the library. So part of this, we would be featuring a book that would be in that reading list once we get the copyright, and the library helps us make the selections.
Thanks, Virginia. And I'll add that this project aligns with the Improving Water Quality and Rehabilitation pillar of the Green Initiatives Fund. So with that, nothing else to add, Virginia?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
So Donna, we can now turn it over for questions from the committee regarding the application.
Anyone with questions with regards to this application for Virginia? Seeing none, I do have one. Virginia, what's the, how long does this last? Like, does this have to be redone every year, or what's the timeline on how long the project, assuming that it gets approved, getting done? How long does that last?
So we're hoping that we would create the designs over the summer. They're obviously weather dependent, but I would imagine that the quality of paint that we're going to use will be two types. There'll be the metal paint for the top of the stormwater sections, and then the proper paint for concrete pavement for outside. So you should get at least 4 to 5 years longevity. There probably will be touch-ups depending on if there's a little portion that goes in the street. Those will have to be touched up more regularly than obviously the ones that aren't part of the street cleaning, but we should get quite a few years out of it, similar to what you'd see on a crosswalk.
Right. Okay. Very good. Good. Anyone else with questions? Okay.
Wait,
So-
what's the cost again?
3,355, and that would be paint and then some artist fees to do the call out to the local artists to participate.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Okay. So I guess I can ask for approval here. And so those who are in favor of approval of this application, could you kindly raise your hands? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't see Bhavna and I don't see Fred. So 4. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to see that we have, yes, thank you, Fred. Thank you. I just need to see that we have all the hands we need. So this is
There's a thumbs up from Bhavna as well.
From Bhavna. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. That's great.
So we'll need a mover and a seconder just to formalize it.
Do not know that.
We do.
All
Yeah.
right. Andre and I'm going to see, I've got Ramaz still has her hand up. So we will have the two of them. There's not actually a resolution.
I didn't include the language in the agenda, Donna. I did send you the draft, but I can read them out for the preceding ones if you like.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to number 2.
So thank you, Virginia. You're free to stay or to leave as you wish. Okay, so our second application is from the YMCA. We are joined this evening by Robert Burns. Hello, Robert. Welcome to the Environmental Sustainability Committee.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for having me.
Lovely to have you here. So Robert's project specifically, just getting my notes together here, everyone, bear with me. They're seeking funding from the city's Green Initiatives Fund to purchase 3 vertical aeroponic gardens to incorporate them in a program for youth to grow vegetables. So specifically, they're hoping to incorporate these gardens, these tower gardens, into their youth farm camp every summer beginning this year, 2022. And then they're hoping through this project, through the remaining months of the year, they would take the aeroponic gardens to various childcare sites and incorporate them into their respective programming. The gardens will not only provide the YMCA youth with a food source, but it will also be used for educational programming throughout the entire year in a classroom setting. Just a couple of other things to add to this is it is anticipated that this project will increase youth awareness on the benefits of aeroponic farming, create a positive community attitude towards encouraging a sustainable lifestyle by encouraging local agricultural best practices. And because the produce can be grown hydroponically after the 8-week youth camp, any excess food grown could possibly be shared with other youth programming over the year or even donated to local food banks. So the project aligns actually with the with all three pillars of the fund. Specifically, it looks at using LED lighting, which is more energy efficient. Because you're looking at hydroponics, they actually use 98% less water. And, in compared to large scale farming, actually produce smaller, less GHG emissions. So of course, this is a small scale project, but it creates really good education and awareness for the youth. Robert, I'll turn it over to you and ask if there's anything else that you'd like to speak to about this project.
Thanks, Emily. I think you hit the nail on the head with most of it, and everything else was in the application. The only thing I do realize when I read it that I didn't add was that between the three largest childcare sites we have that would have it during the school year, as well as the kids in the summer camp, it works out to a little over 350 kids usually every year. So that's about the only thing I could add, really.
Great. So Donna, we can now turn it over to the committee to ask any questions pertaining to the application.
All right. Anybody with questions for Bob about this particular project? I do not see any. So Emily, can you please read the motion then for this approval of this particular project where it's $4,051?
Yep.
That's being requested for this grant. Go ahead.
Resolved that the Environmental Sustainability Committee supports the request for funding from the CDF Green Initiative stream in the amount of $4,051.05 for the Sault Ste. Marie YMCA aeroponic garden project and recommends that council approve the project.
I want to just ask one question for clarification. So that is the maximum, but if less than that is spent, then that is what is received by the organization, right? So just for clarity for everyone, further to Andre's question about how much money is available to us. So could I have someone to move and to second? Is anybody willing to do that? Approval of this particular grant. Eric, thank you. And someone to second. I
see Ramaz.
Yeah, perfect. Yep. Okay, thank you very much. So that's on the floor. So all in favor of approval of the resolution as it was read by Emily? I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. 5.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred.
I'm audio only at this point.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah, I see you there. Thank you very much. All right. Super.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. We'll be in touch. You're free to go.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Take good care.
Take care.
I look forward to actually making a little note. I'd love to go and see them in action, like once, with in use and how the students are interacting and so on. I think that'd be great.
I think it would be great for the whole committee, actually.
There you go. We could
Maybe
go on a
field trip.
Okay.
Who's in?
Okay. And the final application that we have for the funds this evening is from the Blue Mar for Change Foundation. Emily.
Okay. Thanks, Donna. So this evening we are joined by Minna Costello-Wild, founder and president of Blue Mar for Change. Welcome, Minna, as well as Jody Rebeck, vice president. Welcome, ladies, to the Environmental Sustainability Committee. So Blue Mar for Change is requesting funding to expand upon a shoreline cleanup initiative. The inaugural initiative took place last year. It is called the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup, and Blue Mar for Change led this. They're hoping to expand upon the cleanup this year to include greater materials, greater sites, greater awareness about it. In addition to the actual shoreline cleanup itself, the project will include a citizen science component. There will be some demonstrations regarding water quality testing. There will also be a couple of other value-added events. Specifically, they have partnered with the Lake Superior Watershed Conservancy to organize and deliver some site-specific cleanups under the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup umbrella, just to raise greater awareness of the history of our area, as well as incorporate some Indigenous knowledge and fun ways to clean up garbage that may not necessarily be accessible by land, but through a guided canoe tour. They're also hoping to create a legacy awareness initiative through this event by the creation of a video featuring the shoreline cleanup work that is being done regarding water conservation in the region, as well as highlighting the freshwater and beautiful community that we live in. So the money that they are looking for specifically will be going towards the creation of some cleanup kits that can be distributed to members of the community who are participating in the initiative. As well, there'll be some promotional materials that will be required to bring awareness, some prizes, as well as the payment for the citizen science initiative, as well as the work that's going to be done by the Lake Superior Watershed Conservancy and the promotional film. So Minna, Jody, I'll invite you to add anything else that you might like with regards to this project.
Thank you very much, Emily, and thank you everybody for considering this application. We are really trying to get out there with a really dynamic shoreline cleanup, increasing awareness about the problem of plastic pollution and garbage pollution, a better understanding of water and how important water is for the foundation of our lives, sustaining not only the economy, but ourselves, and also really promoting what is happening. So what we're doing underwater-wise is advocating for fresh water. And so this sits under Blue Mar for Change. So we are reaching out through this network of freshwater advocates. So this year we really want to grow and expand upon the shoreline cleanup that we did last year, get more freshwater champions, reach out to more young people, reach out across the community, have an in-person location where people can come together, but also continue to invite people to clean up at their own docks, shorelines near to them, favorite places, and as a collective, making that impact. So we will see the data litter, we'll be able to speak up for some policy changes, and ultimately there is an opportunity for us to apply to be a shoreline community under the Great Canadian Shoreline umbrella, which sits under OceanWise. So it really is working from grassroots level up to very high level organizations and policy changes. Jody?
Yeah, and I would just add too that we also want to connect community to research that we're doing. So, you know, we hope to have a better understanding of what plastics we're collecting and where they're coming from, and see if we can't generate some solutions for that as well. But the only thing I'd add, Minna, I thought you did a great job, is just to beautify the community. Like, I cannot get over the number of plastic bags and things that I see on my drive in and out of town. And I'm so tempted to clean it up, but I just only have so much time. So we're hoping we can engage more people to really beautify this beautiful area that we live in as well.
Thanks,
So
Jody.
thanks for considering our application.
Thanks, Minna. I just thought that's really great. Thanks for the additional info. But just to circle back, the information that's collected in this cleanup, you'll have seen in your application package. There's a national database for the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup where you can record, like volunteers will be able to record the number, the weight, the types of items that they've collected. You'll see the shoreline data card in your package. So there'll actually be some great metrics to look at to see the collective impact on this initiative. And also, as Minna had mentioned, the city of Sault Ste. Marie would also be eligible to become a clean shoreline community, where we would join municipalities across Canada who are addressing issues of waste and plastic pollution through Blue Mar for Change's efforts in this Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup Initiative.
Okay. Questions on this application? Go ahead, Eric.
Just mostly a curiosity question, and to make sure that I understood properly. I think you're kind of suggesting you'd aim for 250 participants and 2 bags each of garbage. Is that what am I interpreting it right?
Yes, you are. Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you. And the more the merrier, but that certainly is the aim, and that's the number of kits that we are applying for. Thank you.
And last year you had less than that because you had some registration issues, you said, but what was the turnout last year?
We collected about 385 shopping bags full of garbage last year. I have been conversing with Shirley Roca. She is the lead on the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup, just to make sure that we can fix up some of those niggly bits, come up with a system that works a little bit better. We were operating out of the box in having a number of shoreline cleanup locations, really wanting to extend the work that we're doing and the impact that we're making under this umbrella of Waterwise. So we will have that dialed for 2022.
Well, and last year was a pilot as well. So that's what we collect, like data we have to suggest how many people participated, but we went coast to coast, Huron Shore and the Superior Shore. And so we went big, right? They say go big or go home. Well, we went big. And so there could be people in Wawa, there could have been people in Elliott Lake that we are not aware of that participate as well. That's my hope anyways.
And I just wanted to add that the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup Report just came out for 2021. We did have a feature in there, but their aim as an organization is to hit 1 million participants in 2022, and they're awfully close to that. They're up in the 990,000 something. So we could be an incredible part of that this year, reaching that 1 million participant milestone, which I think is pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Any other question? Go ahead, Pedro.
Thank you, Donna. So hi, and Jody. Thank you for this. This project is really cool, and it's very well written, and I think it's so important because bringing people together, doing better for the environment. So that's awesome. I have a few, just a couple of questions. So one is, obviously prevention is always better than then collecting the garbage. So I was wondering if you also have planned or think about initiatives, and by cleaning, you're also doing some prevention, I guess, but I'd like to hear what you have to say about prevention and how we can do that better. The other thing is more like technical, I guess. I mean, you were very thoughtful. You have like garbage bags that are compostable, but you have like 100 packs or something like that of vinyl gloves, and those are made of plastic, and you have like almost $800 or something of little vials of 60 ml vials of hand sanitizer, and that's probably also contains a lot of plastic in little jars, and that might be unavoidable, but I was wondering if if there's an opportunity there to reduce costs there and create some alternatives. This is really minor, but it's just something that that caught my attention. That's all.
Yeah, they're important questions and points to pick out, Pedro, because if we're not thinking this way, then the problem just continues. So about the little hand sanitizer, I mean, Harterra has refillables, so there might be some way that we can have the hand sanitizers in donated jars that we just refill. So that would eliminate the whole plastic. And I know we did talk about garden gloves instead of the plastic gloves. So that's another thought around that. And funny thing, compostable garbage bags, there's some skepticism even around that, right? So we just kind of went with what we thought was best. And then Minna, do you wanted to add to that question before I move on to the next one?
No, I was just going to say that was, we did have some gardening gloves in there, and I love your idea about Harterra. So thank you. And the prevention piece is huge, and that's a big part of what we're doing, what we're working on. So through our World Water Day events, we've built up a freshwater toolkit. We've got some plastic awareness that is already there. And also we've had Clean North reach out to us. And so, it's really when we're talking about reaching out to these freshwater advocates and these champions, working together, it's very much about collaboration in sharing messages around how can we reduce plastic, ways to recycle effectively. But ultimately, yes, we have to break the chain, change the policies, come up with those innovative solutions to create the changes in the first place so that we don't have as much plastic going into the waterways. So I agree, it's the tail end piece of it is the cleanup, but it also connects. So part of the idea around the shopping bags last year it connects the thinking of what are we putting into those shopping bags in the first place. So when we're filling up 2 shopping bags of garbage when we're cleaning up, it's also that thought of what can we remove from that? What can we remove once a week when we go shopping so we don't have as much plastic within our lifestyle, and it's changing behaviors and habits sort of one piece at a time. But the cleanup is part and parcel of that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Pedro, like looking at the full cycle, I mean, it really is change. It's so hard for us humans to change, but the will has to be there first. So we are hoping through this that it starts to get people thinking a little bit, because that's the first step, is just getting people aware of garbage. Because I feel like I'm a bit of a garbage police, and I'm just so extremely aware of plastic everywhere. Like I can see it everywhere, and it's really annoying. And I wish I didn't have that awareness. I really wish I didn't. But about the circular economy piece, the other thing that's would be really cool and that we have thought about, it's going to take a bit of planning, is we collect garbage, and we, like last year, my son had a lot of fun saying, okay, we have 72 cigarette butts, which I actually don't have any smokers in my family. So I had no idea that they didn't decompose. So could we go to cigarette companies and say, hey, can you just make your butts compostable somehow? Or if we find like 100 Tim Hortons lids, can we go to Tim Hortons and ask them, can you change your formula so that your lids can be more environmentally friendly, right? And let's face it, these changes as a society, we don't necessarily like the paper straws. How many of you guys love that? If you have kids that like mine, what is this? Like there's some kind of king from a far off land that has never seen a paper straw. So these changes are hard, but that's something we thought about, is just figuring out, what do we have in terms of plastics, and can we not go back to the source and just ask them, like a simple request, like we captured 1,000 Tim Hortons lids, because honestly, from my participation, Tim Hortons seems to be a big driver of the garbage that people like to fling out of the window for some reason. I don't know why, but that's the thought on the other end. Like, how do we stop it there? We can make these individual changes, but it really has to be a collective, huge human wave of effort. And I can tell you from the work that I've been doing, it's really hard for people to change. So if we can get the companies on board, that'll be another big help.
Thank you for that. And yeah, I completely agree. Also, just quickly, I noticed that some of the most plastic cups that I see are actually right around some of our schools. So something that I always wonder about the school boards and the education piece that needs to be done around those areas. And that's very noticeable this time of the year. So anyway, all good initiatives, and thank you for the answers.
Anyone else with questions for Jody and Minna? Seeing none. All right, Emily, could you read that resolution on this application, please?
Resolved that the Environmental Sustainability Committee supports the request for funding from the CDF Green Initiative stream in the amount of $4,929.73 for Blue Mar for Changes Shoreline Cleanup Project, and recommends that council approve the request.
Okay, so could I have a mover and a seconder for approval here? Pedro, thank you to move, and someone to second. Eric, thank you very much. All right, so all in favor of approval of this application, and we have, thank you for all those hands. Super. All right, very good. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to you joining us on Saturday, July 16th for the Shoreline cleanup.
Absolutely.
All right.
We'll be in touch. Take care, Minna. Take care, Jody.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is this month's committee member spotlight. And
oh no, I think it's,
did I miss something? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep,
I scrolled down and
we're on the working group.
Oh, my apologies. I gotta go back.
Item 7, Donna.
7. The next item on the agenda is the update for the Priority Project Working Group. Eric Emelson, that's yours.
Thanks. Okay, so just as a a reminder, we've been meeting every few weeks and discussing the 3 project priorities that were selected by the committee. So we met 2 weeks ago and just did a bit of a progress update on this. So the three priority projects that we selected, the first one was starting an annual active transportation commuting survey campaign to better determine and promote uptake year-round. The second one, which we just heard about with the Green Initiatives application, was to hire an artist to paint selected street storm water gutters with a drawing saying something like the St. Mary's River or the ocean starts here. And then the third one was to add a pillar to the Green Initiatives Fund that allows for project applications that encourage healthy and resilient ecosystems, including habitat restoration. So the first one, starting an annual active transportation survey or campaign. The few things that were brought up there, first was that we see that the city's active transportation master plan being a good sort of engagement opportunity for this project. And so Travis is just going to keep us in the loop about that because it's not complete as of yet. We've been talking about, also we've been developing, mostly Pedro has been developing a shell of what the active transportation website would look like. And we've been working on sections such as a section that would sort of outline the benefits of cycling, as well as cycling routes in the city. And that's being pitched as a potential project idea to the City Studio Initiative. And then we also talked about sections that highlight testimonials from the public, local resources and events page, sort of like a one-stop shop kind of thing. And we discussed that this would probably initially start out as a web page hosted by the city. And then we might be able to sort of transition it to a third-party organization as it grows. But we thought it might be best to start it off based on the city's website. And we are looking for any resources to add to that website. So if anybody has any good cycling resources, links, websites that we could get ideas from, pass them on to Emily. The second one, the hiring an artist to paint selected storm gutters. So we discussed that the Yellowfish Road program, the Algoma District School Board doesn't really have the capacity to carry that out this year, mostly because of the fact that they're just bogged down by COVID-related absences and staffing and so on. So we're looking to actually pencil that in for 2023 and to tie it into the World Water Day, Earth Day, and Act on Litter Day as a 3-tiered event. And Emily's going to keep us posted on this. And Emily has also contacted the Catholic School Board to gauge interest as well. I connected Emily to the Waterwise Network, basically with the idea of linking that painting of the stormwater gutters to this project called Libraries Love Lakes, which I learned about a few months ago, which is basically a public outreach thing run by libraries to just really educate on the linkage between or the importance of the lakes that we live on and around. So we just thought that would be a nice alignment with the initiatives around the Yellowfish Road program. So that's where the Green Initiatives Fund idea came from. And then the third project idea, adding the pillar to the Green Initiatives Fund. Emily's gotten feedback from all the committee members on that, and we discussed basically a focus on that the new pillar should have some focus on EDI issues and sort of an alignment around the social and environmental benefits of regreening and healthy ecosystems as well. So Emily's revising the terms of reference on that, and that's going to be shared with us soon. I think that's it. Did I get everything, Emily?
Yep, I think you got it.
Pedro.
we're like Eric said, we're working on these things. We did pitch like the trail survey, like a survey of trails to City Studios. So we are waiting to hear back from them. There was a lot of projects pitched to the City Studio team. So we'll definitely circle back with the committee on that. And just kind of to reiterate, this is just like a starting point, like the creation of this shell. It's like, as Eric said, like a one-stop shop for resources. There's a lot of really great initiatives already in the community. There's a website for the Hub Trail, but we're kind of hoping to bring all of this together, and also talk about, the different benefits of active transportation. What can you wear? Testimonials from avid cyclers, as well as, different resources to learn more about it, links to our local businesses that support cycling, the environmental benefits, the health benefits, the financial benefits as well, especially given these times. So we think it's a really good start. So not to put anyone on the spot, but if you, as Eric said, if you have any resources that you'd like to share, we're working on developing a good straw dog of what that web page will look like. And we'll hopefully have that ready to share with the committee soon.
Great. Anybody have any questions for Eric on that update? So nice to see so many things moving ahead. I just makes me so happy. Moving ahead, things moving, changing, making a difference.
Progress.
Woohoo. Yes, it's so great. All right. Now we are on to agenda item, I think 7 something. I can't see my 8.
Item 8.
I can't see my agenda and my screen at the same time. So now we have this month's member spotlight, and Andre Riopel will be taking us through what he wants to share with us and get us thinking about the things that he's passionate about and has been working on for many years. Andre, the floor is yours. I think you have about 15 minutes or so to present your slides and your information, and then I know there's going to be lots of questions and comments.
Thanks, Donna.
You're welcome.
And Eric, thanks for the setup, because my topic flows right into yours. So let's go from there. I'll put my. Okay, can you see my screen?
No.
No. Okay, hang on. Sorry about that. Let's go back to Zoom, I suppose. So I gotta go to
share screen.
Share screen. I did that. Okay, and then I go to here. All right, and then I go to, you can see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, so how do I go to?
So you see the icon that has a little triangle?
Oh, yes, right. Okay, this one here.
Yep.
All right, so Eric, from your talk, okay, I hear about looking at best practice, evidence-based for things that actually work to encourage active transportation from all around the world. And just so a little bit background here, Emily wanted me to talk a little bit about myself. I tend to do that well, so I'll try to keep it precise. Okay, I'm what you would call a bike nut. I was basically ride my bike. I'm on my bike 95% of the time for transportation, for traveling, for adventure, for playing, and I've been involved in cycling both as in my profession as a physiotherapist, and then I've been in Sault Ste. Marie since 1941. I'm a year-round bike commuter. I've been doing it all my life. I travel all over the world on my bike, and basically, yes, I'm a bike nut and a cyclopath, if you want to use that. I've been involved for over 40 years on bike-related initiatives in Sault Ste. Marie. The Hub Trail project initiative basically was spearheaded by the cycling club and myself and a group of cycling advocates back 15 years ago. So that's probably one of our most exciting projects. I've also initiated the Lake Huron North Shore bike route from Sault Ste. Marie to Sudbury. That's part of a province-wide network that connects the whole country, the whole province of Ontario. The pump track at Esposito Park was another project that I initiated. I'm also an advocate to try to improve active transportation issues. For example, on the top left, when I see sidewalks not being plowed, the corridor, this is the corridor by the MTO building there, and at the top of Willow, which is a very busy active transportation corridor. And there was a big sign, and it says, the sign on the bottom says, "Don't walk on the walkway." And of course, they put a big pile of snow right on top of the thing with no consideration for people who walk. So I actually reached out to City Works, and they actually now plow it. So that's really good to see. So whenever I see these kind of issues, I try to deal with the people that I'm also very involved with the cycling club on organizing all types of events that help create, in my mind, a generation of cyclists. So our cycling club is very active. I've been a member of the cycling club for 41 years. I served as president for multiple years, and now I'm at the advocacy director. So some of our exciting programs, we have a pump track festival. We attract 100 people. This year, we have a kids program at Hiawatha. We had our first session on Monday. We had over 100 participants. We filled the program so fast. Last time we did it, we had 35. We have 100. And the only thing that limits us is the number of volunteers that help. It's really exciting. The Hub Trail Festival was run for 4 or 5 years. We have 300 participants in that. That's very exciting to see, get people excited to explore the Hub Trail. And then we have a bike festival every year at Hiawatha. And the post-COVID, we expect to see hundreds of people in that. So I've been involved in all those things. So I guess you could say that I've also been involved at the provincial level to do conferences about active transportation and sort of the book 18 about design and the relationship between urban environment and behavior and what works. So, and the topic of doing things about what's important with how do we get people to embrace active transportation, and we have opportunities and we have challenges. So over the last 70 plus years in North America, particularly more so than in Europe, because Europe cities were really designed and built prior to the automobile, and in the last 70 some years, the mantra was the American dream of a home on a large property with a driveway and a big car, and that was the view. And we've adopted that kind of development process, and resulting in what we have today. But what's happening is the opportunity right now, there's a huge shift towards active transportation and realizing that car-centric development is actually very counterproductive to everything we care about, including the climate change, etc. So at the end of the day, I want to review what's happening in the world and what works and what doesn't work. And then lastly, I want to propose some ideas that maybe take it what Pedro and Eric are doing to see what we can do in Sault Ste. Marie that I think would have more effectiveness than promotion and education. So basically, when you look at the city, there's a list of things here that are difficult to change, and the way we have look at how our city has been the way it is now. Sault Ste. Marie is unique on many levels. Sault Ste. Marie is a very large city, and it's low density city. I live on Case Road. My backyard is on a forest. I have 3/4 of an acre. It's a great lifestyle. It's fantastic for quality of life. We have third line, fourth line. We have a whole spot. On the dark side of that, of course, is that for most people, the reality is we need a vehicle to go to work because everything is so far apart. And what's interesting about these pictures is you see the high density on the left, and then on the right is a classic subdivision in the city. And what's interesting with the top picture is you see, a house, and I swear to God, if you're a Martian looking at that from outer space, you believe that the actual living things in this particular things were cars. Cars were the living things, and people were just sort of a parasite on the cars, because everything is built around automobility. So this is the sort of situation we have here, and we just keep doing it. And I think that this is the sort of thing that we need to really think about. And the idea that when we look at the number of Sault Ste. Marie has one of the highest. We have more roads, more kilometer road per capita in Ontario. And this is a statistic that was given to me by an urban planner intern from City Hall. And I just can't get my head around that. But it's true. We have a very big city where we have lots of roads, and we just keep building more roads because we need more roads, I guess. And then we can't even pay to fix the potholes because we have so many roads and we don't have enough people living on those roads. So, and that goes with the big box. And if we look at planning decisions, we're trying to deal with a huge problem downtown here. And what we did is that one of the worst planning decisions we've ever done is moving the hospital up to in a big box model with a huge parking lot. And what's interesting about the hospital, when the conversation was going about where the hospital should go, one of the ideas was the challenge was, of course, is you can't build a new hospital on the same site without tearing it down first. And one idea was to build the hospital at the top of Willow at the MTO site. And the biggest problem with building the hospital up there was that there was not enough space for the parking lot that it was required under the regulations that when you have a building, you need a certain size of a parking lot. And we could have done it if we would have built an underground parking garage, and an underground parking garage would have added about 35% of the building costs of the hospital. So it was basically a no-winner from the start. So what we did instead to save money, we moved the hospital even further north on a big empty field. And then that's what we have today, a big empty field in the middle of nowhere. And it's far away from everyone. And then, of course, we created this out-migration from a downtown, from a high employer situation to what we have now. And now we're trying to fix the downtown because nobody lives there anymore. Well, people live there, but we've basically created this challenge for us. So this is a sort of thought of thinking about when we're looking at big plans and stuff that we have to really, and then the big box school is another one, like the idea that we have the bottom right corner there. That's a St. Mary's, like look at the size of the parking lot. It's amazing. It's like 5 times the size of the school. Like when I went to high school, we had a small parking lot. Only teachers drove to school. And even then, most of them walked. So we have to start looking at why we do things this way. And Walmart too is another big kneecap in the problem for us. And then also, what this is amazing me. This is Terrance Avenue. And that was recently reconstructed in a high density residential area, close to a school, in an area that the density of the residential area is booming. And you think it would put a sidewalk. You walking a kid to school, you live 2 blocks from the school, there's not even a sidewalk, and we have a ditch there. And that to me was and we asked for sidewalks. And the way the rules are in the city, you don't, the people, the property owners have to pay to the improvement of, and I don't want to pay that. I don't want a sidewalk in front of my house. Are you kidding me? Like the kids can walk to school, and then you make it safe. Now I talked to the principal at Terrance. He wants to do a walk to school program. I said, one of the challenges, it's not safe to walk to school. And then he said, everybody drives their kid to school now because it's not safe to drive to school because it's too many cars. Then everybody drives their kids to school and drop them off. And then it's sort of a self-negative. And on the bottom corner here, it's like on the top right, this is like access to the site behind the LCBO. You think that you would actually allow a nice place for people to walk to get to the site. It's not even considered in the plan of when we look at a site plan for a big box development. And on the bottom, that's Home Depot on the right there. And what happened, it was supposed to be a pathway there. And one of the neighbors said, I don't want people walking in front of my house. So they say, okay, no problem, we'll put a fence. So what do people do? On the bottom left corner, you see people make a trail around the fence. So this is a kind of like, wow, like why do we get this wrong all the time? So anyways, we've got to think about these things when we plan these development. So anyways, when we look around the world, I'm going to provide here a couple of observation about this paper that was recently put out by a European approach, Lund University for Sustainability, just published in February, about what works to help increase the modal shift towards active transportation. And there's a 12 and they rank the strategies, but there's a common theme to these strategies. And I just want you to pay attention to this. And I'm going to go quickly through them because some of them are relevant, some of them are not so relevant, but there's a common theme to most of them. Okay. And see if you can catch on. So the first one is congestion charges. You look at the city of London, England, where basically you have to pay to go into the downtown core if you're driving a car. So right off the bat, you have an economic incentive. right here, same thing. You have to pay. So when you have a cost to the storage of a car, it really pushes people to consider alternatives. So again, another economic incentives. And traffic control is basically you just stop cars from going certain places. Road diets, conversion. These are the things that have actually a evidence-based shift away, a modal shift into transportation. You know, and we a lot of streets all around the world now, and I think the city is really trying to do that. And I know the downtown plaza and the Woofner that they're talking about is definitely going in the right direction. So those are the type of things that we really need to look at and to be encouraged. But those things work. So you limit, and then also make it easy not to drive. You know, provide free bus, and also make it easy for students to get to school without having to drive. And workplace parking charges. That is very effective. Okay. And when you think about it, and when you think of the cost of a parking spot, I just talked to my friend architect at Dave Ellis, and you look at a typical condominium development, and you look at the cost of the parking relative to the cost of the whole building, and it's about 30%. And when you break that down, it's like $3,000 to $4,000 per year per spot. So I'm riding my bike to go to City Hall, and I park my bike in a little spot there. Now the driver beside me, he's getting a perk of $4,000 or $5,000 a year. So we have some of these built-in incentives to basically support drivers at every turn, and then we wonder why people drive and we subsidize them at every turn. So I mean, that's the first step. We've got to stop supporting the activity we're trying to discourage, right? So workplace travel planning, again. One of the things, the top thing that really gets me is like, you bring your bike, people want to ride their bikes to work or school or whatever. I don't want my bike to get stolen, and I don't like my bike to expose to rain and snow. So sheltered, secure bike parking is a huge barrier for a lot of people who want to consider traveling by bike to get to work or school. And the same thing falls in a university. And you know, you look at Algoma University here, and you look at Sioux College, it costs money to park there. So students, you're gonna, if you made parking free in those places, first of all, you wouldn't have enough space for all the cars. And number two is you would reduce the number of people who are actually taking a bus, ride a bike, or walk to school. So see, these are my ideas that I think would be in order, I think, of importance or doability. So the first one is something that we are really well on our way. The vision is to have the hub trail as the hub of the whole system, and then that every single school in the city has a segregated path that takes any student in school to get to school without having to go on a road. And we're definitely in that direction, and we have a huge amount of support, and everything that we've done to promote this connected system of segregated gold standard path to get anywhere you need to go is the top. And I think we have a huge amount of support from the community, and we have a huge amount of support from the city council. Now we just have to put our money where our mouth is. There's tons of opportunities that are coming up at the provincial level, federal level, to help continuing this. So having a master plan, an active transportation master plan, is so important, because when you go and ask for dollars, they say, where's your plan? So you have a shovel-ready project, and boom, it happens. The hub trail happened so quick when we had the plan. We put money, we had a plan. Once the plan was in place, we found the money. So the plan is so critical. And we've got all these developing trails at Hiawatha. And if I was going to put one connecting trail, that is the number one connecting trail, is the trail that's been proposed by Travis to connect basically the third line hub trail section up through Wishart Park and up to the Hiawatha Highland. So basically, if you're at the Delta downtown, you come here to ride a bike, you can get on your bike, you can ride all the trails to Hiawatha and come back and never have to go on a road. But again, they need to be connected to where you shop, where you work, etc. But the city has an opportunity because it's so green and there's lots of space to do this. So that's my number one. Number two, so again, I talk about active transportation. Parking reforms. Parking reforms is something that is a huge momentum now in North America. And just last week, the city of Kingston. Parking reforms mean that you look at parking mandates. So parking mandates means that when you go to City Hall and you're building a building, if you have a restaurant, a church, or whatever, a house, you need so many parking spots for each classification. There's this archaic list that was drummed up by some guy 50 years ago, has no context to place. And then when you look at what inhibits development downtown, is that if you want to build a business downtown or you want to build a condominium, is that you have to have a parking lot that is so big, that is so underused and so poorly managed. So now what they do with parking mandates, the parking mandate changes the minimum amount of parking to the maximum. So one word is changed. So now the regulation is that if you build a building or a unit or a restaurant or a house or whatever, you want to build a parking lot, go ahead. You don't want to build one, go ahead. It's up to you. You separate parking from the building itself. So if you are renting a condo, your condo costs right now, let's say 30% of your condo costs, $1 million condo, $300,000 is your parking spot, $700,000 is the actual condo. Well, I don't drive and I want to live in an area where I walk close by, so I don't need my $300 parking spot. So you reduce the cost of an affordability for housing. And you also, right now, the discrimination is against people who don't drive. We pay for the drivers. We pay to provide facilities for drivers at every turn. It's embedded in the price of everything. So we need to separate that. Okay, go on.
No. I just want to say it's 5 o'clock and I want to make sure we have time for questions.
Okay.
And I want to make sure you finish your presentation because you have a lot of very valuable ideas here and things we need to be thinking about and acting on. And so I don't want to run short of time. So maybe another like 5 minutes and let's get through this. And then I'm sure people are going to have questions for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So parking reforms, Kingston is the latest one. And also in their mandate, they also added that any new building or whatever, they have to have secure indoor bike parking. And also, so that's actually now a bylaw in Kingston. And it's very exciting to see Montreal, Toronto, a lot of cities. So that's a website. So there's a lot of opportunities for that. Road diets, we are on the way to do that. Conversion, 4-lane roads were designed for highways. 4-lane roads don't belong in cities. 4-lane roads are dangerous. They cause accidents. 3 lanes, way better. And we need to convert, Pym, Bruce, People's Road, Cora Road, Wallace Terrace, second line between Cora and Goulet. And I talked to engineers at City Hall. And they don't get this, and they should, because this is we've proven that, and I've done it on Queen and we've done it on Northern Avenue, and there's no issue. So it saves money, it gives more space for people, and it's the way to go. Bike parking, I mentioned that should be mandatory. More pedestrian zone, we're working on that, Wolf Nerf and stuff like that. So the city is definitely going in that direction. We just need to continue that way. Free public transit, I mean, that's a relative thing, but public transit is, we subsidize drivers, why don't we subsidize non-drivers? So reducing, every time I see the price of public transit go up, I cringe because it's definitely a wrong-headed. Convert one-way street, that's sort of, one-way streets were designed to facilitate drivers, to increase the speed of driving and the convenience of drivers. But they don't help pedestrians, they don't help people who live in neighborhoods. And we have a lot of those in our downtown core we can get rid of. And then land value taxation is a new concept. It's the idea that your land value is based on the size of your property rather than the value of your building. So what that does, it encourages the development of empty lots or decrepit properties, because you pay tax whether you have a building on there or not. So you might as well put a nice building on your property, particularly if you don't have to have a parking lot. So it helps to create a new downtown, because we are going to fill all those empty parking lots with real buildings. And the people who have brown land and polluted land are going to pay higher tax. So they're not just going to sit on it and create this blight that we have on our waterfront. Anyway, so that's summarizes pretty well what I have to say. I hope I'm not offensive, but that's how I feel. That's it. Okay, Donna? Any questions? All right, good. It's very clear, isn't it? No, I can't hear for some reason. My mic is off. Okay, I'm muting. Jim, I don't hear you, Donna.
That's because I had my microphone turned off. Sorry. Questions for Andre? Whoa.
I have a question.
I was pretty sure at least Pedro would want to ask something.
Well, it's such a good presentation, and there's so many things that need to be done, and I agree with everything. So it's hard to ask questions. You're right. You're very clear. when I look at Sault Ste. Marie and how large it is, and I actually overlay Sault Ste. Marie's map on top of the city I grew up in, which is Lisbon, the same area has about 1.5 to 2 million people living in that. Those cities were built before the time of cars, vehicles the way we have today, horse and buggy, and so my question is a very big question: is it possible? Can we? How do you? I mean, you already pointed out a lot of the evidence, and the evidence, I mean, the measures, the policies that need to be instituted to try to reverse that. But then the question I still ask is, will it work? How can you transform a city that was built, and just like in all cities in North America, pretty much based on the automobile and the existence of the automobile?
Yeah.
How can you reverse them?
Yeah, and Pedro, you that is the $1 million question, isn't it? Right. So how do we do that? So if you look at all the strategies that I've outlined, and what's really interesting, that's why parking reforms is so exciting, because parking reform is organic. It's a slow thing. Nobody notices. All the cities that have done it, what has happened it's a slow organic shift. It costs nothing to anybody. And then all of a sudden, the basic nature of the city starts to change. The biggest mistake we made, those parking mandates, there's a book that I shared with Emily. It's called The High Cost of Free Parking. And that's available. Actually, Emily can lend it to you. It's 800 pages long, and it's written by a UCLA planning professor. There you go. And when you read that book, it's transformative, because if you change that law, and we will change that law, and I'm going to hope that I get Donna's strong support to do that, because everybody else is doing it, and it doesn't cost, and nobody notices that's happening. Next thing, there's somebody downtown develops a building. Nobody talks to the fact that the parking lot's pretty small here, but nobody notices. Then there's a lot of other things in that. So the idea, it's a shift, but that's the low-hanging fruit, changing one word in the bylaw. So that changes the way, and also really creating incentives by changing the rule book to encourage densification. Right. So right now, the densification is not encouraged. Well, it is. We are moving in that direction. And I think the official plan is definitely trying to shift in that way. But in my opinion, the way it's shifting, it has to happen way faster. And everybody's scared because we are so in love with our cars and our car-centric lifestyle. And most people get defensive. I talk to my neighbors. Well, I can't live without my car. I said, you can live with your car, but I mean, it's possibly will be a little bit more expensive. And then maybe think about, but then the convenience thing. So the parking reforms is definitely the top of the list, and that doesn't cost anything. So we should do that first, right, Donna?
Any other questions, Pedro?
No, I just a comment. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be about living without a car. I lived in a city in Berlin where people have their car. They don't use it during the week. They use their bikes because the city is well designed that way, right? But the car can be used when they need to do a long trip, if needed, if public transportation is actually not available. So a lot of people don't have cars, but they can have if they want. So yeah, it's very difficult to make these changes. So yeah, no, that was just a comment. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
I have a question for Donna. Do you think there's an appetite for parking reforms at council? If I've actually got Peter Tonazo to look into the idea, because the city of Kingston just did it, and they have an excellent, we could reach out to them and see, okay, how did you guys do this? Like, how did this happen? And what is the outcome of it? Because Kingston, I like to compare us to Kingston because we're a similar size and we're in Ontario. So if Kingston does it, what has been your experience? And it's nothing, because it's just a word on a regulation. It's really simple, really. And it does. And that's the beauty of it, is that it changes the way we build city. It increases density. It increases the density downtown. And when I saw that one of the mayoral candidates, the first thing on his list was to provide free parking downtown, I actually reached out to him and I said, maybe you should read this book. And then you will see that that's definitely wrong-headed. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's just
I think that there's several things, and I do think there is an appetite for this. You know, demonstrated by what decisions and what planning has occurred in the last 4 years. I think you can see that there is an appetite for doing things
Yes.
differently in general by the group. And as you know, we have an election coming up in the fall, so we'll see what happens there. But when I think about it, I think about having to layer several things. So if we make the parking reforms that you're talking about, we like rock star public transit on top of that. We implement, safe places, covered places. That's something in your presentation for people who want to cycle, whether that's winter, summer, whatever it is. It's a lot easier to try and get people to cycle in the summer or in the less inclement weather. But, so I think it's sort of like layering a few things together that really set the stage for people being able to safely, comfortably, there's a little bit of carrot and stick, and then see what happens. And then from the grander scheme, bigger plans on densification and other things, so that we work towards something. We create a strategy and we work towards something that has that, where we're consciously designing a different city for the future that is going to be less car centric, less road space, etc. And I was going to ask you, but I think you've already answered it there now, which was about what would you say was the top priority, which I think what you've said is parking reforms as a start.
Well, that's the easiest one. And then, and I know you support the active transportation plan. So those are the two top priorities.
Right. Okay. Other questions from anyone? Eric, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I think I'm building off of what Pedro brought up, but I'm just curious if there's examples of places that have done this, that are spread out and have managed to, like, it's so obvious that Sault Ste. Marie is just so insanely spread out, and I know you made the connection to Kingston, but I think Kingston is still a smaller area and a bigger population. And I think, like, if there was a population growth going on, then that could be a really good way to implement change and start densifying the population. But how do you do it in an area where the population isn't growing and you've already got all this infrastructure that's spread out? Is there examples of places that have done it? Because, I mean, it needs to be done, but it just feels really difficult to.
Yeah, and I think, Eric, you have to understand that Kingston is one example. The other one, the city in Ontario that has been probably the most successful shift in the urban planning, because in Southern Ontario, the city of Guelph actually has a lot of progressive rules about building codes. And so because in Southern Ontario, sprawl is huge, so a lot of farmland is being, so everybody, all the big rich developers, they want to buy these big empty fields from farmers, and they make these suburban sprawl. Well, Sault Ste. Marie, we keep doing the same thing also. So for example, if for example we facilitate, if you're going to build a new home, it should be on an existing road. Instead of allowing new suburbs to develop, because when you have suburbs, the developer pays for the road to build the road. The developer, but that developer doesn't pay for that road. The people who buy those houses pay for that road. So let's say you build a house, say on an existing road, the same house. Well, it's going to cost less because the developer doesn't have to pay for the road to get you to that house. So how do we create incentives for developers and people who buy those homes to not build them in new subdivisions? So the idea of stopping the new subdivisions, but not stopping the growth of, because when you build a new home, you're creating one more place for people to live. So people are moving from their home into a new home. Well, the home they leave is an empty space, an apartment they can rent. So there's a trickle effect. So there's no question that building new homes is good, even if they're high end. It leaves low end. So it's not the way the market works. So, but it's the idea of doing that without basically adding to our road network, because we have lots of space. We just have to use it effectively, and we have to create incentives by the official plan does that too. So that's my thought. And I think the planning department to me is the key place where we can make a big difference. And we need to look at the rule book, and any rule that seems to be counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve, we need to look at best practice. We need to look at other communities are doing, and that's how we can actually change the city in a slow incremental way. It's not going to happen overnight. We can't undo the mistakes we've made. We just got to stop making the same mistakes over and over again. That's all I'm saying.
I think too, further to that, Andre, and just thinking about what Eric and Pedro said, I know it feels like, or on paper, we're not growing, but we really are growing. And I'm going to be very curious to see in the next census, which I think is either this year or next year. I know there's one, I'm thinking there's one fairly soon. And I think what we're going to start to see, and the more we can work as a community, like to promote our quality of life and have jobs for people. There's so many jobs available in this community right now, all kinds of different jobs. But I'm thinking it will help us to attract people to come from outside of our community who are perhaps of a different demographic, who have had a lifestyle that isn't as car focused, if you will, right? Younger people who are graduating from university or whatever. And it starts to shift the balance between people who've led a life this way and this is, what they're choosing, versus people like myself. I'll throw been here for forever, drive a car, most places you go, because that's the lifestyle you've always had. And so thinking about, Pedro brought this up too, thinking about like that, it's a cultural shift in a way, right? It's thinking about how do we, and the work that you guys are doing on that, the active transportation work and building out the resources there, but like, how do we change the culture, attract more people so that there's more of a balance of folks who want to live that way and do live that way. We change how we develop, like it's all those layers or whatever, but
absolutely.
It's a very interesting discussion.
And you're right, Andre, this is like this, we need to do it right now because this is a time when, we always need to do it. We should have done it 10 years ago, but we need to do it right now. It's a good time to do it because I think, Donna, you're right, the population's growing right now. I think there's an influx of people during COVID, and like Guelph is one of the fastest growing cities in Canada. It was, but it will be interesting to see in the new census, how that has changed and how places like Sault Ste. Marie's population are shifting. So this is the time to implement these changes. We could talk about this forever and we don't have time, and I'd love to talk about it forever.
Yeah.
We could talk about it for forever. I know. It's very interesting. I just want to see Ramaz or Bhavna, Fred, do you have any questions you want to pose to Andre? Or join?
I don't have any. I don't have any questions. Something happened to my phone and I missed the beginning of this presentation. I obviously wasn't able to see it, but just a comment, and it kind of aligns with Eric and Pedro's as well. And I support the ideas that Andre's put forward. I studied transit planning in my master's, and roads generate traffic. There's a book that's titled that. These are progressive things and changes that I do believe have to happen all over the world, and I do think that it's a good idea for us to start there. It doesn't change overnight. It's going to take many decades, and we might not see the changes for a long time. But I do think that it's the ideas that were put forward are pretty logical, and not that cutting edge, let's say, right? There's a million journal papers and books that are out there about this kind of stuff, and I think that the concept is really that we're looking at trying to make a change now that results in a progressive change over time. That's all. I think they're good ideas, and I think if implemented properly and supported with other things over time, they can serve to make the change that Andre's looking for in the community and make it, you know, a little less vehicle centric. And now, I mean, I also recognize on the other hand, like the Soo is a lot in a large sense a commuter city, right? I live north of Deborah. You know, I work in the Soo. There's no way I'm going to travel 56 kilometers each way to get to work every day by bike, especially in the wintertime. But so I need a place to park when I come to the Soo, and you know, I've got 2 young kids. I have to have a vehicle to put them in to be able to travel around. But it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the case for the people that live in the city. And so that's all. It's just comments. I think they're good ideas, and I support them. And I'm curious to sort of see how things can transition over the next few decades if things go that way.
I hear a
Can
little
I make a
person
couple
there.
comments on just, first of all, the whole idea is, can we have growth without increasing traffic volumes? And I think that's our objective, and I think we can do that. And the other thing that's interesting about Sault Ste. Marie is we have a lot of commuters, as I call them, who live in Deborah and Hayden and Prince Township. And those commuters need places to park. And also, why do people choose to live in Goulet and Hayden and Prince? And one reason, ironically, is because the taxes are lower. And ironically, is the taxes are lower there because they don't have to pay for the roads and the parking that is needed for the people who live out there to come here in our city and create the potholes. So it's like, we need to amalgamate all these people, and everybody needs to chip in to pay for the cost of this lifestyle of living in a nice country home in Deborah and then having to drive 30, 40 kilometers every day. So maybe somebody who comes to the city and say, well, I can buy a big property in Deborah, but I can buy a condo downtown for really inexpensive because it doesn't have the parking costs associated with it, and I can walk to work. So anyway, so that's kind of like why it's a vicious sort of self-perpetuating problem.
Okay, I think we're gonna end that discussion and the conversation here. Thank you, Andre. Thank you for that's really well prepared. I'm gonna certainly, we all have that now as a resource for our own thinking and how we move forward. And Emily, you're gonna take us. I'm gonna say take us home. I know you have 2 or 3 things on the agenda there to round out the meeting.
Yep. Okay, so I'm just going to provide everybody with a staff update. If I can get my PowerPoint to work here. What's going on? My screen is frozen.
Okay, it says on our end, I don't know if you can see this part, but it says on our end you've started screen sharing, but
yeah, I'm completely frozen on my end.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to just orally go over it because everything is frozen on my screen, but you can still hear me.
Yeah, but can you oh, you can't even stop sharing your screen, can you?
No, I'm
okay.
gonna try to do some shutdowns here on my end.
That's okay. You carry on.
If I can. So anyways, the quick updates that I had were the city has actually, Sault Ste. Marie is actually a community. So Enbridge Gas has actually created, oh, darn. Is everyone there still?
Yeah.
Sorry, my computer is going berserk on me. I apologize. Everything went black. So what I'm going to do is
we're here. We're here.
You're here. All right. So I'm going to ad lib here, go off of memory. Oh,
We can still see you too.
We can see you. How can I help you by looking at your report just for prompting? Would that be helpful?
I think her computer's froze, Donna.
Oh, she's definitely frozen now. Okay. Well, we can read about, I know I don't think I can get her back without losing everybody. So we can read here about the expansion of the Enbridge gas hybrid heat pump program. For information there, we can, yes, maybe she's going to come back. She's got some notes here on, there she is. She's got some notes here on the.
I'm back.
Okay. Okay. Carry on.
Okay, so I'm not going to share my screen just so that we can make sure that that doesn't happen again. So just a couple of quick staff updates. All of this information is in your package. I apologize for that issue. I just wanted to bring to your attention, if you weren't aware, Enbridge Gas is expanding their hybrid heat pump program to Sault Ste. Marie. So at the end of April, the Ontario provincial government budget that was tabled announced $4.5 million to expand the Enbridge Gas hybrid heating pilot program. This actually originated in the City of London, and it was a partnership between Enbridge, the City of London, and London Hydro. So now they're expanding it to 4 other communities. Sault Ste. Marie is one of them. The other communities include London, Peterborough, and St. Catharines. It's anticipated that this program will benefit up to 1,000 customers in the 4 communities. And this project has been supported locally through a collaboration between Enbridge, the city, and the PUC. Just for some insight for those who may not necessarily know what a hybrid heat pump is, hybrid heating technology allows you to lower your GHG emissions without increasing the peak load on the province's electric infrastructure. So the program will provide an incentive to homeowners to purchase an electric air source heat pump and smart controls that can be combined with the homeowner's high efficiency gas furnace. So it will optimize gas and electric infrastructure, reducing the carbon footprint, but also choosing the most efficient and cost-effective heating source at the time. So more information will hopefully become available, but pretty exciting stuff to see a program like this expanded to a Northern Ontario community. Just a couple of other quick updates on my end. The single-use plastic ban community consultations were wrapped up at the end of April. In total, we had 707 responses to the community survey, 89 responses to the business survey. We also held an open house, a virtual open house on April 7th, and we had 39 people participate in that. The results are currently being analyzed, and the insights from those will help shape the bylaw. On April 22nd, Earth Day, we also held our Earth Day Bio Blitz. The city partnered with the Sioux Conservation Authority as well as the Kensington Conservancy. Through this initiative, there were 1,000 sightings and over 300 species identified. So pretty great stuff from a biodiversity standpoint. As well, another highlight, the city of Sault Ste. Marie, along with 12 other municipalities in Ontario, is participating in a study, and this will develop information and resources as well as the roadmap to transition to electric buses. So that's very, very exciting. So we're rolling on that. On the retrofit front, we're making some progress. The LED conversion at the Northern Community Center is complete, and we're also moving forward on the installation of our small business lighting retrofits. As a reminder, we've got over 20 of those underway. And just to highlight some of the insights from that, we're looking at a reduction of just the ones that we know so far that are on their way to be installed, reducing our energy consumption by approximately 52,000 kilowatt hours. And that will actually result in over $6,000 in energy savings a year. And that's only from 7 projects, and there's a total of 20. So that's pretty exciting. We've also had our kickoff for the John Rhodes Heat Recovery Project. So we'll be keeping the committee posted on that. And last but not least, I just wanted to let everyone know we held our Understanding Solar Energy webinar yesterday in partnership with Garden River First Nation. We had 90 people register for that webinar, so a lot of interest. It's been recorded and uploaded on the city's website. 90 people didn't show up, but I think we had about, 40 or so, which is pretty darn good. And please check out the staff resources in the PowerPoint. Lots of great resources being shared by different members of the committee. And another friendly reminder, if you've got links or resources you want to share, please pass them along to me, and I'll be happy to include those in the next agenda. And just to let everybody know, our next meeting is June 9th, 4 to 5:30 p.m. And our member spotlight will be Jamie Graham, our senior manager, corporate sustainability and reporting at PwC. And that's it for me.
All right, it's 5:28. I don't think we need motions to adjourn. Or I don't think. we
I
do.
mean, I have it on the agenda. I don't.
All right, then we are going to have a motion to adjourn. Who would like to, who would like to, okay, Ramaz is moving that we adjourn, and I just need a seconder of some, but thank you, Pedro. All in favor, thank you very much. Great discussion, great presentation, lots of good things happening.